For everybody watching this, I want you to know that God loves you too much and you don't deserve it, not even an ounce of it. Because when you look at everything that humans have done over the course of their existence, it's one of the most heinous depictions of conscious nature that you could ever imagine. I was talking to my friend the other day and I was like, yo, if they made a movie about the earth, then all humans would be the villain. And I get that some people want to single themselves out like, well, it's not me doing it, so I'm not responsible. It's them doing it, and you like to other yourself from what is the whole. And it doesn't make any sense, because no matter how much you're not responsible personally for what humans have accomplished in the past few millennia, it still doesn't shift the blame from humans itself. So if one human has done something, it's a reflection of human nature in a sense. So I get that, you haven't done anything, but it doesn't change the fact that humans in general have. Because when we look at the good of human nature, you'd want to be involved in that, because you like to think to yourself that you're a good person. So when you look at the goodness that human nature entails, you like to lump yourself in with that because it's a better reflection of your nature. But when it comes to the evil side of the coin, you like to separate yourself, because in your mind, you don't depict any negative and or harmful self-reflections that should lump you in with that group. But it doesn't matter. A lot of you went to Sunday school and heard the Bible verse John 3:16, where it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, so that you may not perish but have everlasting life." And a lot of you guys just recited it like a mantra. It didn't really mean anything to you. You were just saying it because you were in Sunday school. But I want you to really break down that verse and really look into what that entails. That verse is not just a verse that was just written. It's a verse that encompasses the sacrifice that was made so that humans can continue to live. The greatest show of love is sacrifice. For somebody to show you that they really love you, they must sacrifice something that means the world to them, so that you can know that you are the number one priority in their life. For you to see how paramount you are to somebody else's vision or somebody else's life, you would like to see, you might not say it, but you would like to see them sacrifice something in favor of you or give you everything. And what's the best way to give you everything? By giving up everything that makes someone whole or someone feel like themselves. You understand? When somebody gets married, they sacrifice their self-identity to be conjoined with another. That's love. Love entails sacrifice. And that verse in itself is the greatest sacrifice. He gave his only begotten son, not one, not two of many, the only begotten son. If you only had one thing and I asked you to give it up, you giving it up would be you sacrificing this one thing, especially if it meant the most to you. Back to the conversation with my friend, I was telling him, we are evil creatures. We are responsible for genocide, we are responsible for murder, we are responsible for rape, we are responsible for the pillaging of the earth, we are responsible for the extinction of animals, we are responsible for a whole heap of things that we as a whole don't like to acknowledge, right? If you look at the earth is big enough for everybody to be able to live within the earth and be self-sufficient. The earth is big enough for everybody to not have to struggle. But guess what? It's the opposite. Everybody's struggling for the most part. The reason being that you have a 1% and then you have a 99 percentile that gets by, while the 1% amasses all the wealth in the world. that has been made so because everything within the world has been commodified to make sure that somebody's benefiting while everybody else is working for that one person at the top that amasses all the wealth, right? And when I say one person, I'm referring to the 1 percentile, right? With everything being commodified, it goes against the plan that God has set for the world to be self-sufficient. The world is big enough for you to have your own plot of land, for me to have my own plot of land, for your mother, your uncle, your whatever. For the 8 or so billion estimated people that live on this earth, there's enough land mass for everybody to have their own and be self-sufficient with the amount of food, natural food that exists. Everybody could get their own piece. But you have people that are struggling, dying of starvation, people dying of malnutrition, people dying of dehydration, all because somebody came and said, oh, this plot of land is mine, and in order for you to live on this land and be self-sufficient, you have to pay me to live on that land. And if you don't pay me, well, it's your ass. Get off my land, get off my property. I retain all the rights to determine and dictate who lives on my land and who benefits, as long as they're benefiting me. It's a selfish nature that we all partake in because we feel that we don't have any other way in living. The idea of civilization was morally right until it entailed that somebody would be benefiting while everybody else would be struggling to live. The idea of civilization was that we would join together and make a society with rules and morals, and everybody would live under those morals to ensure that everybody was safe and everybody was protected and self-sufficient, and we would have a community. But what that became is capitalism or socialism, because no matter how you slice it, either or might look good on paper, but in practice, none of those ideals serve human nature. It will always benefit somebody because somebody has to be in control and somebody has to orchestrate everything that goes on, right? So this community that was supposed to be created was done so and then morphed into this evil cabal where everybody just is struggling and scraping by and is grinding and is hurting anybody or everybody just to get their slice of the pie, when it could have been just split down the middle, split to the side. You take your piece, I take my piece, they take their piece, and they take their piece. But it's not so. But all in all, God allows us to live. He allows us to live. He allows us to prosper. He allows us to multiply. And you look at God and you say, God don't love me for real. If anything, I love myself. That's why I'm here. I make sure that I make myself self-sufficient. Keep telling yourself that. You get to a point where all your strength is depleted and you need to rely on an exoteric source of energy. When I say exoteric source of energy, I'm not talking about the spirituality thing and I'm talking about God. That's the plain and simple truth. And I don't care how it sounds. Maybe if your pastor told you that, you wouldn't like it because it's your pastor. But maybe you needed to hear from a vessel like me, somebody that looks like me, that you can relate to, so that I can actually give you the unadulterated truth. Because I frankly don't care about your feelings. I really don't. I'm just here to tell you what it is. I'm here to tell you how I see life through my lens. And this is my lens. And for a lot of people, you need this lens because you see life through a muddied lens that is capitalized by grimy nature. Oh, an eye for an eye. I'm gonna hurt you so you don't hurt me. I gotta destroy you so I can get to where I'm going, so that you don't become a obstacle in my path of growth. That's how a lot of you see the world. A lot of you see the world through a distorted lens. And it's because you're hurt inside. You need to heal from your trauma. You need to look inside your soul and ask God to come in there and shift and break and restructure and purify and cleanse your soul, because your soul is dirty. A lot of you hurt people for fun, and it's because you live in a world that champions that. It champions that somebody got to get stepped on so that you can get to the top. It details that for you to get to a specific place in life, somebody needs to be at the end. Somebody needs to be at the bottom. If you ever look at the pyramid of the world, how you see the bourgeoisie at the top and the proletariat at the bottom, holding up the bourgeoisie on their shoulders and on their backs, and the bourgeoisie is crushing the proletariat, but the proletariat, even though they're the mass, they need to stay at the bottom to hold up the bourgeoisie. Then you would understand that all of this is a game and you're playing right into the game. And you, quite frankly, don't need to play into the game. It seems like a necessity because you've been molded and groomed to think that without this structure, the world can't live. And maybe the structure needs to be burnt to the ground before something new can be created. But none of this can be created the way it's supposed to when a lot of people don't have a love for God. When He loves you too much. You go outside and you look at this beautiful nature, this beautiful green nature that God has made for you, this beautiful earth that He's created, all these beautiful and grand land masses and attractions, and you just look at it and you're like, wow, this is beautiful. You don't even acknowledge the creator that made it. You don't acknowledge the architect that made it. So you think that it was just there and you just spontaneously combusted into the earth and saw this beauty. There's a creator. He's God, and He made you, and He made me, and He made the world, and He loves you too much because He allows you to live even though you desecrate everything that He set apart for you. The day that the Lord comes back will be the scariest day for humankind, because humankind will be forced to reconcile with the fact that they have a creator who loved them and they spit in His face, and now He's back to set everything the way it's supposed to be. For a lot of people, it's going to be God revenging Himself upon them, and for the few, it's going to be God coming back to reclaim His own. He loves you too much, bro. Because if He didn't, you wouldn't be here. You'd be gone. A lot of people use calamity to justify why they think that God isn't real or God isn't merciful and loving. They attribute calamity to God's true nature of being destructive and being narcissistic and wanting people to worship Him or else. But that's not the truth. Calamity reminds you that you live in a fallen nature and you live in a sinful world that needs to reconcile themselves to the Creator that made them and it. But because you see life through a distorted lens, you believe God is just destroying everything because He's petty and He wants to hurt you. Who are you? You're a speck in the universe. If I zoomed out 10,000 feet, I wouldn't even be able to see you, let alone the building that you live in. You know how grand a building needs to be for me to even be able to see you from 10,000 feet in the air? That's how small you are. But He cares about you. To be so small and so insignificant, but to be loved by the greatest force that the universe has ever seen, because He created the universe. And you take that for granted because you don't care. His love is so grand, it's so overwhelming, it's so enveloping, but you don't want it. You want whatever you want, and He's gonna give you over to your desires till you realize your desires are destroying you and are self-destructive. But who am I, right? I'm just a messenger, right? I'm giving you the message that you need to hear, not what you want to hear, because a lot of you are conditioned to hear what you want to hear. So you've created an ecosystem that reinforces all the things that you want to see and want to hear, and not what you need to hear. That's why a lot of you don't adhere to advice, because you want to be the one to give the advice and I have to take the advice because you want to be the center of everything. You're too self-centered. You're too stubborn. You don't want to hear. So the only way for you to hear is through destruction. You got to go through the depths and depths and depths of hell on earth for you to be like, oh shoot, I need God. And I wish a lot of that on all of you that don't listen, because you need that in order to realize that you're not strong enough to do this on your own. You need God. And you need a community that will help you on that path. Otherwise, you're alone and you're destined for destruction. But who am I, right?